Yeah, that's what I like about this show is that literally I start talking comedy with a comic I like, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't recorded that. And that would have been great. 3 great lessons for young comics, but fuck it. But joining me is Ish Gupta. Hey, Ish, great seeing you on Friday.
What's going on? Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen you because everyone's not been around each other, and then when we do, we meet where someone died. Not they didn't die.
Say, yeah, the scene is like kind of like in those pockets now. It wasn't as like everybody's going everywhere as it used to be.
Yeah, I think COVID did that. I think COVID, when things opened back up, people are like, I'll go out, but I'm not going out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Kind of stay in their little circles. And also, I think it's just become safer and easier for some people to do that. But it's also, I've been trying to go to mics because I don't know who new people are.
Mm-hmm.
Like years ago, you were new people. And you're not new, and I know you now, but you're not new people. You're a guy on the scene, and there's people looking up to you going, oh, I want to get your spots. Like you used to look at people saying, I want their spots. So it's fun to watch that go. You know what I mean?
That's a cool progression to watch. Yeah.
And you don't realize you're in it until someone's like, dude, how do you get that show? And you're like, wait, you want what I have? You try to be cool about it.
Like, people at that show too. Like, what do you?
Yeah. Like I saw Chris Warren the other day, and for last time I saw him, I think he was like a couple months in, and he was the guy everybody was running to at the Stress Factory. Like, it's Chris.
Oh, he's the man, dude. Yeah, no, War Dog's been killing it.
And he has been working hard, and he is funny. And him and I talk comedy, but for me, it was kind of cool to see that. And then have some of the comics. One comic came up to me, he was like brand new, and he just goes, "Are you nervous?" And I didn't realize he was talking to me, and I'm like, "I'm all right." And because he didn't know who I was, or I had never done comedy, so he was trying to be a good dude.
Right.
My first time. And this kid, Zach, who goes there a bunch and knows me, goes, dude, what are you doing? Don't do that to Pat. He's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. The guy, wait, have you done this? I'm like, a little bit. Then he gets scolded by someone. Like, don't scold him.
Twice, yeah.
Do not scold him. I like, listen, that's the kind of guy I'm going to appreciate being around. A guy who gave a shit.
And it was like an honest like thing. You know, it's not like he came up and started like shitting on you, you know?
I've gotten that. I've gotten advice after my sets from people like, hey man, maybe not having notes up there. You've got to open mic. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm okay. I think I'm going to keep bringing my notes up. Thanks, dude. And one guy's like, you got to take it. I had somebody give me advice that was my advice from my book.
Mm-hmm.
That was my favorite thing ever. They said like they got it from someone else. And they told me who they got it from. And I'm like, that person told me they got it from my book. I wrote the thing you just told me to do.
Oh,
they're like, well, you should do it. I was like, you know what? Maybe I should listen to myself. What's your writing process? How do you write jokes? Do you sit down and have a time, just whenever it comes to your head?
It's kind of throughout the day. It's like during little breaks I have, because at my job I'll have like these random lulls of like either 15 minutes to a half hour just off, and I usually just kind of scribble in my phone, like in the notes app that I have.
So if there's ideas while you're working, do you put it in the notes app so you can go to it in the breaks?
Kind of. Yeah, here and there. I mean, I'll have the idea, like the premise will like pop up in my head, and I'll like kind of write down ideas throughout it until like I have something that I can bring to a mic. But it's not like a set time per day, because it just kind of happens every day, and I think about it like enough where I don't need to like force myself to like set aside a time. It's not
what
like
if it doesn't happen?
It's just like
if it doesn't happen, do you beat yourself up, or you like something will happen tomorrow, or
if I don't like look over it at all, then I'm kind of like, oh, I wasted like time today. But even if it's just like me just like staring at like a few lines and being like, okay, what do I need to do? And even if I don't come up with anything, at least if I like did that, I'm like, all right, I spent time and I like got somewhere with it, you know.
Yeah. I make sure there's a goal like, worked on every day. That's what I try to do on, even if it's not writing.
Yeah.
It's like I have a bit I like. Now I want to figure out where I can try to put it when I'm working on something here, or maybe I could do this with that or whatever. Even if it's something I've already been doing, how can I bring energy to that or change that, whatever.
I listen to like old versions of it too, like just old takes I have of that joke, like that specific moment. So sometimes I'll go a day and I'll just listen to shit, mainly like recent recordings, because I don't really keep like everything, but that helps a lot too. Even if I'm not writing, just having that in my head.
Have you ever tried to do an old joke that like maybe when you first started that you haven't done since? Well, that worked, but you haven't done. Have you tried to do it recently?
Yeah. I think I might have done no, I didn't do it on Friday. But it was something I didn't do for like 2 years, maybe. And then because I just thought it's like so general and all my stuff is like stories. And then this one was just kind of like an observation thing. And it doesn't like feel like, I mean, it kind of feels hacky, to be honest. Like, that's why I don't really like doing it. Cause I like every time I think about it, I'm like, oh, most people could have come up with this sort of thing. But I just used it to tag on to like something that was like similar recently. And it's like old and I'm getting back into it, but nothing else really from like, I don't know, to that first year or two.
I had to do a
Yeah.
stag a couple weeks ago, and I haven't done those in years. But someone had hit me up, and I was like, "Oh,
That sounds fun though. Like everyone's, was it just in their house or something? Or
no, it was there's a because you're from the area. It's a Revere Brewery.
oh, cool.
You know
Yeah,
that
yeah.
back that back barn they
Yeah.
have. They had that as a private thing on a Friday
Oh,
night.
that place rules. Yeah. I did the last two of the shows they did there with Kevin and Darren in the past.
And that's where I felt bad because, like, okay, for any young comic watching this, listen to what I'm about to say. I knew that Kevin Fitzgerald books that place. Now, I didn't know anything about where the venue was. A guy I know said, "Hey, someone needs a comic for a stag last second. Can you do it?" The person contacted me. We talked money. We talked what I'm going to talk about, all that stuff. But then the day before, he sends me the address, but not the name of the place. So we're plugging into the GB. I brought Dan Brown. I plug it in. I see the name Revere, and I'm like, "Fuck, that's Kevin's place." So I text Kevin right away. I'm like, "Hey, man, just so you know, I got hired to do a stag somewhere, not booking your room." And he's like, "I really appreciate that, but I knew you would never steal anything." I know, but I want you to know this was just something they rented the back for. He's like, "No, dude, that's awesome. Thank you for letting me know." Because I would never want to try to take someone's room. I didn't even know where they were having it.
No, that's nuts too, because they like the literal same situation happened to me with that brewery, where it's like on July 7th and it's like this totally unrelated like company. I guess they're like women stand up. They're out of New York, and it's like they're doing like some fundraiser there, and they asked me to do it, and I assumed it was with Kevin and Darren. And then the more the girl told me about it, I was like, "Oh, this isn't you guys." So I texted Darren right away. And I was like, "Someone just asked me to do this, and like it doesn't seem to be connected to you and Kevin at all," because I knew they had just done a show. So I was like, this doesn't add up, you know. But I think the owner there is just kind of, I guess, open to different bookers.
Right.
Like,
I think he allows, if someone's going to do a fundraiser or a private party, he lets them do whatever they want to do with that. But as long as he's keeping the comedy night booked by those guys, you know what I mean?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Because that's the hardest thing is, a lot of comics will be like, see a venues up when they first start and they go, "Well, I want to do shows there since someone else is doing." Like, well, that person established that. You don't open your own restaurant inside a restaurant. You go find another place, you know, I mean, just because the venue's there.
And just the level of comedy is going to change. You know, they get people like, they get like really big headliners and stuff. And those shows have been like really well run, you know? So,
but even if they don't,
someone doesn't have experience and they try to book a show there, it's going to end up not being a great show.
Exactly. And then someone just goes to that and thinks all comedy at Revere stinks, and then doesn't go see a guy like Alignon or people he's bringing into the state, which are awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but we're doing the stag, and I talked to the guy. The kid's 25 years old. The father hired me. The son's 25 years old. Boring, run of the mill, good, just a good kid. Like, and I'm like, I didn't want to shit on someone. I'm like, who's gonna be there? It's like mostly older people. His best friend, his younger brother is 17. A couple of young people, probably like 30, 35 people, but ranging from age 60 to 17. It's all men. And I go, okay. He goes, well, here's some stuff you can make fun of, but none of it was really like. He's like, oh, he's always on time, and he's got a little bit of OCD. I'm like, I know, he sounds like a wonderful guy. So I was like, if you don't mind, I'd rather do a comedy show. I will pick on him a little bit, like what you gave me in the act, but I don't want to hammer on him. But I wanted to bring Dan Brown because Dan is very uncomfortable in most situations in the world, but I wanted to see how he would handle this, to get him a little more growth and stuff. And he did a great job because I sent him the notes. He's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this, but he was nervous the whole time. But
you guys both just came up with new material based on the notes?
No. Dan didn't do anything of that, but he actually, for the first time ever, made his act seem like it was just off his head at the beginning, which was, so I saw a new comfort level in him by taking a chance, because the kid who was getting married was marrying his high school sweetheart. So he met her when he was like 14. He's never dated anyone else.
Right.
So Dan read that note, walked up and goes, "Oh, I hear you're marrying your high school sweetheart. You've never had to deal with dating apps like the rest of us." Anyway, and I was like, look at Dan Brown. It was so simple. And it sounds stupid when you say it to other people, but as a comic, to be able to make your shit relate, and then you could just talk about yourself, it was great. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I was
that's how I felt on Friday, because it was so easy to be like, you guys are rappers, like let me talk about music, you know.
Exactly. Like, you know, it's like, and for me, it was just easy to go to be me in that situation, because they're all gruff. They were all like there, but not sure what this was going to be. And that's basically my act. I don't know what I am. I don't know what I'm supposed to be, but here's all my shit. But getting back to the stag thing, for long story short, I wanted to tell a story that had to do with being married. And I haven't been married in over 10 years. And the last jokes I have like that were from my first album years ago. So literally that day, I had to listen to jokes from my first album because I didn't remember the jokes.
You don't do any of those anymore?
No. I mean, literally, I've recorded 2 albums. I don't do any of the jokes from either album. Except for I did on Friday, because now it's back in my head, the joke about peeing in a cup and driving.
And you open with the TLC thing, right?
You know what? I did that too, because I've been adding. Those are the 2 things I've been doing.
I remember I was at your first album recording, and I remember that, and I was like, "Oh,
that
shit.
one and the pee in the cup thing," because I listened to those 2 jokes in the album, so I got them back in my head. But what I enjoyed most about doing that was I'm now telling the jokes at a different level. If you will, like, even not that I'm saying I'm better, but like I'm a different comic, and telling it this way, it just feels like I've unlocked something. So even if I don't use those jokes often, it's got my head going again, like what I used to be and where I am. And sometimes it's good to go back to your old shit. Kind of go back to the roots, listen and go, instead of going, "Oh, I was terrible," going, "How would I tell that now?" And just try to tell it now. And watching how you tell things, you can notice more about what you can do, your comfort levels. Definitely. Your memory kicks back in too a little bit, but and I think it was better for me to do it, because now I'm talking to a guy trying to joke about how marriage can be bad, because I'm like, haha, you're getting married type bullshit stag. I never understood that. We're happy for you to get married.
They're just trashing.
You're a piece of shit. You're having a big moment. You're in love. You have everything everyone wants in life.
But it's about to all be over.
Like, you have everyone around you that loves you. Their family. They're all here for you. And we hired a man to tell you you're wrong. It's like, I just went up and said that. But like, it felt good to be able to go through that. But now with the disconnect from it, it was kind of more looking back at like, oh my God, because I even in the joke I said there's something where I say I'm getting divorced, you know, she might divorce me if I do this, and I go, in retrospect, I should have just stayed in the car. Like, I said that during the stag, they all laughed because I'm like, yeah, I've been divorced for years and very happy. So like, what was I worried about? But yeah, my writing process is kind of like yours. I always tell people you should write the way you studied in school.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so like if you're someone that was an adamant note taker, then that's the way you retain knowledge. That's the way you understand things and work on it. But if you aren't, I see these comics going in notebooks, and I'm like, how did you do in school? They're like, awful. Put the notebook down. Like, you don't know what you're writing. Like you
already know this doesn't work.
Yeah. You can say Einstein's equations on it. You're not going to figure them out. You know what I mean? I wasn't good in school in that regard. I learned everything by me saying it. If you brought me up to the board and I had to read things off, or I had to read out loud, boom, I got it, and then I could figure it out. So if I get an idea, I have to go on stage with it and just verbally work it out, even if I have no plan or anything. I audio record that, and then I can write. Now I can listen to me say it. Now I can write, move things, and then I just keep doing that until I got the joke. But that's how I get it. So like your thing, same thing, where it's like all day ideas pop up. I'll just record something if I don't have a chance to go to a mic, I'll literally either write a Facebook premise on Facebook to see if anyone connects to it. Just to see if I get, like, I don't care if they think it's funny. I want them to know if they connect to it and it resonates at all. If anyone gives a fuck, if there's any interest. And then I'll off that start writing.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But I like that I'm not the only one, because all day when I'm working or doing things, constantly joke ideas are running through my head.
And that's like the best time to think about it too, because it's organic. It's just like you living everyday life, and you're just making those like observations, you know?
And it's better than you trying to run one at somebody at work, which we've all tried to do.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, you ever see how fat that lady is? Like, wait, no, Pat, no crowd work. I'm like, oh, I literally just got fired for that. Anyway, but it was fun to watch comics on Friday handle a weird situation because I've seen you at shows where the same thing when I first started. We've done enough bar shows where that doesn't phase us. Like we saw that, and I think all you and I saw were, oh, people sitting down. That's cool.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
you
at
know
this
what I mean?
point, yeah, I've been trained to just be happy there's people there.
Yep.
Because there's so many times when there aren't. So
And they paid for a ticket, which means they're going to listen. Like, oh, that's amazing.
right, yeah, and then it's like it's for a good, like the vibes are good because it's for their friend, so they'll
Right.
like they're just down to support whatever's
I
happening.
mean, for their friend, they commissioned
Yeah,
like an 8-foot painting. By the way, the guy ski mask with me, as they unveiled it, he goes, "Who's that?" And I went, "What, dude?" He goes, "Oh, is that guy who died?" And I go, "Yeah."
Oh, just that guy.
I go, "It'd be weird if it wasn't." Like, if somebody's just like, "I got this dope picture of my cousin," it's like, yeah, that giant picture is of the guy who died. I was like, "Don't do that on stage." It's like, all right. But all right, so is there an idea? There's something you're working on right now?
Yeah, there's something. It's on the newer side. It's like, shit. It came to me the weekend of, where was it? This was like February when I started it, like the idea of it, because it was something my friend said to me that weekend in February. So that's how old it is. And should I just do like, I'm not going to
any way you want to tell it. You don't have to tell a bit. You can literally just share the idea where it came from, whatever.
I can just give you the lines as they are right now. So I went to my buddy's place in DC. To give you background, I went to my friend's place in Washington, DC, and we just he's one of my best friends from high school. Me and my girlfriend went, and a couple other of my friends from high school came, and we like chilled in his apartment the whole time. We were just kind of having drinks and like smoking weed and stuff and just chilling there. And at the end of the weekend, he apologized that we didn't do like sightseeing, as we were leaving. Like, right. He wasn't sad about it. He was just like, oh, I'm sorry if you like wanted to do that. Like it was very casual and stuff. And the joke is me telling that, and then me being like, I don't care about any of that. What is it? I don't think you should feel obligated to do something just because you're in a place where that happens. And then afterwards, after that line, I say, at no point during that weekend was I like, hey, man, we should put this joint down and go stare at a government building. So that's like the main punch that I have right now.
Yeah, but there's so much you can do. That's a tremendous premise because there's so much you can do with that.
The line before it is the premise that I want to work, but it's so long me getting there right now because I have to tell the whole, like, we're in DC. This is my friend. We were in the apartment. And then at the end of the weekend, this is what happened. And I've been trying to really just cut down that initial part of the story because I want to talk about other moments that has happened. Yeah, but I can't tell the story for each one,
Well, so. Do you believe that when this joke gets to where it's going to be, that the importance is going to be on the friend or that visit, or is it more about have you ever been in this situation?
Yeah, I think it's the second one because I think that's a thing where like you say you went somewhere and people are like, did you do this thing or whatever? And like, I don't think it's not like a huge deal, but I think I could have other situations like it. And this could be the first of a multi-story bit.
Because I think the first thing I would do by saying it out loud, if it was me, I would cut out all that fat at the beginning and literally just think, okay, so like, let's just say New England, for example. You could just say at a show and you're in Massachusetts. Is anyone here ever gone to like a touristy town like Salem and not looked for a witch or not gone to where like, like churn butter? You kind of say that you just hung out in someone's house. I've done that, never thought about it. But when you're leaving, why does that person feel obligated to be like, I'm sorry I didn't bring you to the place Miles Standish jerked off or whatever the fucking thing you would say? And you're like, I'm good. I just wanted to see you. Like, there's no point where I wanted to do this. That would be like, and then you could just go into other shit.
And that way, it's not like a story. It's I'm interacting with them because you like asked a question up front. You were
but you don't have to do it that way either. Yeah. You could just literally be like, the other day, a buddy of mine, you could do it yourself or whatever. A buddy of mine lives in wherever, DC. and you can say it quickly like that. And I visited for the weekend. We just hung out. We just watched. We just caught up on old time. Just like we haven't seen each other. And as I'm leaving, he's like, "Hey man, I'm sorry we never got to go see the monuments or any of the cool touristy stuff." And it was like, "No man, I wanted to see you. Like, why do people feel like because they live somewhere they have to become a tour guide to that?"
Yeah. And that's kind of another. That could be like another idea to explore off of that too.
You can go two ways. You could go with your way there, but then also make a joke later, like say where you live and like what would I show people?
That's exactly what I was like. Oh, like you want to come to Hamden? You know, what do you want to like? You know, well, and that kind of thing. Like it doesn't work if you live in a less exciting place. So like, why should it be like that? Yeah, I don't know. I see where you're coming from. That could be a cool idea.
But that premise is tremendous because that literally is something that everyone's done. Like I've literally, my brother for a while lived in Georgetown, and so when I went up there when I was, we went up there, and then the last day he's like, "Do you guys want to go see stuff?" I'm like, "It's like 90 out. I want to be in here with air conditioning and just watch." No, I don't. I could look that shit up on my phone. Like, you probably get a way better tour. It looks better in pictures than it does sweating next to a monument. Like, it's like I've seen the Lincoln Monument. It's just a giant guy in a chair, and he was racist. Like, I can see that anyway. I can just go visit my dad and see a racist guy in a chair, like if I wanted to. But like, so I think people would connect to that right away, and you can do so much with it. Like, you could do good things and bad. You could have like a couple that are like real thing. Like you could say like, I lived in if you said you lived in New Haven and you brought people to go to Sally's and Pepe's Pizza, they're going to go, oh, like, just get excited for dumb little, like almost like saying the truth, cheap pops. But then like, and also right around the corner, crack. That's where they have crack. It's tremendous. But it's like Yale, and then right behind Yale, it's like murder. You're right behind it. But yeah, that premise, have you tried it on stage at all or just been working on
it? Yeah. I've been doing it since probably around then.
Are you noticing the connection in the middle where people are interests are peaked, but then maybe the destination's not there yet?
Yeah, well, it ends right. Or so I do the stare at a government building line, and then after that I do those people who take money out of my paychecks. I want to go see where they work, like, and then I cut it, but then I just cut it there, like it's just over, like I just go to another bit. So
I wanted to go visit my taxes. I kind of like
and shit like that. Like I've like kind of played with that a little bit. Like I want to see how much nicer their offices are than mine, or something like that, or like I don't know.
And it's a fine line because you were choosing
a couple different ways. Yeah.
So therefore, for a second, people are like, oh no, here comes like his thoughts on abortion or gun laws, and you're not going
because it's like because it's the government's the target. Then I'm like, oh, am I getting like political? It's just like, no, I just don't care about that. Like this isn't. Yeah, like you said, I went more for the person. And that's the main thing I want to kind of imply is that like it was that whole reason was why I was there.
Right. But as I'm saying, like for that one moment, you're gonna get someone to be like, getting upset about liberal or this or that. And it's just like, that would be my one thought is like, do I move the location? Probably be fine.
And that could be kind of cool to try different, like I do that with different songs when I try like a joke that has lyrics in it. Like I'll just change the song because it doesn't matter if it's like true or not. Like in the story. So I can say like I visited fucking, I don't know, like Los Angeles or something. I don't know, somewhere I haven't actually been, but where there's something memorable that people go do there, like I don't know, like the Hollywood sign. I don't know anything about LA, but
but then you could look up like think about like the 7 wonders of the world and find something funny there, because like that's what I like to do when I find a punchline that I have, but I'm like, there's got to be more. I will write down or then brainstorm 5 more, and 4 of them will be like on par, and then one's like extreme. Like this ridiculous thing. Not that I would end up using that, but it would be this thing to kind of challenge me to go, this is so insane. Like I'm gonna say that like Waco, Texas, like but like in a time machine. It's like not now. It's like or something like that. But like that's what I would do. I would use other places. And not that I would end up using them all, but like I used to do a joke where I had 5 punchlines for it. And because it was a joke about my mom used to date this guy.
I remember it's the wheelchair.
Yes, and that all came from I wanted to write one punchline, but on its own, one punchline was just like people are like, you're just making fun of a guy in a wheelchair, and I wanted it to be so silly and so ridiculous. I'm like, I kept changing punchlines, and I'm like, I have 5 punchlines. I'm gonna do all 5. And in the ridiculousness of me just continuing these awful puns about this man with no legs dating my mom, people would at first arms crossed, but by the end they were laughing, forgetting it could be something bad because I'm talking about a handicapped guy, and it wasn't about that. It was my ridiculous attempt.
Well, it's more like, let's watch this comedian do this kind of.
Right, watch this guy continuously try to do this thing he shouldn't do, kind of like the wheelchair guy going up the stairs. It's like we're both doing things we shouldn't do. But I do that all the time now for when I'm writing jokes. When I don't have punchlines yet, I take ideas and I'll go at a mic and I'll do the joke like twice. I don't care because it's batting practice. And people are like, "Well, you just did that joke." I said, "Okay, you don't matter. You're getting cheap wings on a Wednesday."
That's like sometimes funny too, to be like, all right, I'm going to do the same thing, but I have to try another one. So here it is. Like,
well, flat out, be like, oh, I didn't work.
Like,
how about this? Here's an old choose your own adventure thing where I'm going to throw this out. It said, I do that in writing a lot. I think more people should try. I think a lot of people get a first punchline or their first laugh on something and go, I'm done. And it's like, you're missing out on all the fun of making a joke.
I was going to say, and that's like, if it's a quality joke you're going to have for a while, you might as well try it, a couple different ways. Like why not at this point? Because nothing is ever going to be like the universal response to the joke, and trying it out multiple ways is like part of just like the fun of it.
And even when it hits and you quote unquote kill or whatever with it, it doesn't mean that you're now going to start, once you hit that point where it hits every time, you naturally start to get bored of it.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I like to switch, not even like punchlines, but like describers, like small things to keep me on my toes. Like if I'm getting bored with a joke, if I said the guy had a green shirt, I put him in a purple shirt, so I'll remember purple. So when I say purple, there's a little more energy to me. It's the crowd doesn't understand or get it, but it gets me.
You're having more fun in that moment, and that's a better performance. Like that's the crowd won't notice that kind of thing, but like at least you just feel better. Because I've had to like begrudgingly say things on stage sometimes where I know this is good. I've said it a billion times and I don't want to say it right now, but I have to because it's good and like I need to do good, like
right, exactly. It's something, and they're gonna enjoy it.
Yeah.
Those are the jokes when you start. So when was the point when you did comedy where you got? I hate to say good enough because then people go like, "Are you saying this?" Whatever. Comfortable enough in your act, because happens to every comic. We don't always think about it. Where you could start thinking about other shit while you were talking?
Probably like, I think it was probably after the shutdowns. Okay. And so it was like, because I remember that specific process at like, did you ever go to Sea Grape in Fairfield?
Yes.
Yeah, it was there. It was like, that was like the first mic back. And after like a month of just only doing that, because that was the only thing, I remember like, I didn't take I used to just have my phone on stage mainly to record, but also just have like the list of my set. I didn't like look at it a lot, but it was just there. And I remember I think my phone died or something like that. And I was just like, all right, here's my order. And I'll just remember that. And I remember thinking about my order like mid speech,
But you're talking, you're moving.
Yeah, and I'm like, the fucking funeral thing is up next. And I like thought that like while I was still talking, and I was like, oh shit, I can do. And then like honestly, I haven't felt the need to bring notes up since that time. Because if I have the order of like what bits I want to try, that's really the only thing I had it for,
If I have notes up there,
it's only a mic thing, really. Like I want to work on this tonight, but at a show, that's not really the case,
Yeah, if I'm on a show and there's any note, it's because someone told me, make sure you say this while you're hosting.
Yeah, something like that. Thank the bartender, all that shit. Yeah.
Right. It's not shit like that. Yeah, but when I'm working on jokes, I'll bring notes up every time and never look. I'll bring notes and I'll bring a bottle of water. Too, yeah. I'll never take a sip of water and I'll never read my notes. And I'm like, why am I bringing these up? I've never drank water on stage. I literally have tried to force myself. I forget. I'm doing an hour. I come back thirsty. It's a full water. Like, why did I have this? But I remember when I first did that, I was like a year or so in. I was performing a lot. And one day I was doing like 15 minutes. And I remember thinking about how the next day I had to bring my daughter swimming. And I was literally thinking about how we had to get up early.
That's like another level. That's like thoughts outside of comedy.
And that's where I mean, that's every day
about more comedy.
When I was doing the show on Friday, I was thinking about a thing I had going on Saturday, a radio thing I had to do.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about, I haven't been in the studio in a while. And do I remember how to do the boards? And then like when I kind of come out of it, I'm literally out loud throwing pee out a window, like, and acting like pee's. I'm like, and they're all laughing, but I'm like, I'm in the middle of this bit. I mean,
Just
I'm
kind of like
literally
on
there.
autopilot. Yeah.
But it's weirder than autopilot because we do it in a way where everyone's on board. And like, I like when I get there because for some reason I think when I don't, I'm an overthinker. I break everything down way too much. So when my mind goes somewhere else and my body can just be with the joke, if you will, I do my best performances. So I know I'm not doing well when I'm thinking about the joke.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That's why I like to fuck around with different movements and things like and a punchline differently. Start it off here. Don't do this joke second. Do this joke fourth. Just so I have to think about. So I have to think about it. So then, weirdly enough, I don't think about it.
And you might find like a connection in there too, just by mixing up the order and stuff. You might get like a callback or like some kind of like reference to something prior. You know,
what I've done before, I've taken a joke that wasn't really hitting the way I wanted it to, and said, "Fuck it, I'm going to put this in the middle of my other joke." And I've done that, and it's been like, holy shit, that's what it was waiting for and needed.
Adding kind of helps. Yeah.
I have a bit. I've been working. I talked about it when I had Dave Hintz on. I had 3 or 4 different jokes that really didn't make sense on their own. One of them was a story that could be pretty offensive on its own, but I knew people could connect to it. So I was at an open mic and I watched 5 comics do dating app jokes. And I was like, I hate this. So on Friday, I think you saw me do it. I've done a thing now where I just say I'm on dating apps and then I just tell a stillborn joke, an abortion joke, a gender fluid joke. None of those things happen in dating. I just said, I'm so tired of people saying this. So I just pretended it was conversations with people on dating apps. And then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh my God, I hate women like that who bring that shit up. It's like, those women don't exist. These were just 3 separate jokes. One was a real story, but when I framed it like that, I watched men and women all on board with it going, yeah, I've been through that. I've never had that bad of a date.
Yeah.
So I found a different, I hate to use this term because I heard Chappelle use it. And I've heard other guys say, I use different scaffolding in the joke. When he said that, when he watched the Norm Macdonald special, I was like, oh my God, every young comic's going to say scaffolding instead of structure now. But like, that's what I was doing with that one, trying to work that out. But that's my first 15 minutes on the Friday show was all open mic. That's jokes I've only done 2 or 3 times. And I was just like, screw, besides my, when I was on TV joke, but like everything else, I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to throw this out there. And knowing that crowd wasn't a comedy crowd and wasn't really on board and was like, what the fuck's going on? The fact that I got them to all move away from the bar and sit down and get involved, I was like,
oh, okay, yeah, no, it was
these jokes have something.
Yeah.
I think it was more me just my loudness forcing them to sit down, but also,
well, you also got like the cadence and the delivery and like someone like the aura of like, this person knows what they're doing. Let's gravitate towards this because like it, at first it looks like it's just someone talking, but then, you know, I think even from far away, like all those people could kind of tell. I don't think they're pretty used to music probably,
right.
So, which is something you can kind of like, you don't have to pay attention to the first song or like you can dip out for a second and go talk at the bar. So I think that was like also part of it.
Well, you could tell because all the girlfriends of the rappers wanted to talk during the show. So I let them just talk. Like 2 of them asked me how they get into comedy. And I'm like, just be the girlfriend of the rapper. You know what I mean? Like, don't watch me. And one girl goes, I can do what you do. And I'm like,
dude, that happened to me on Sunday where like 2 people in the audience were asking, it didn't happen to me. I was just on the show. I didn't have to deal with it, but they just like asked the booker if they could get time. And then the booker was like, no, this is like a booked show. This isn't like an open mic or anything. And they were like, one of them said like, or someone was like, you got to go to a mic, you have to like write material. And the guy was like, he's never done it before. And the guy was like, my material, every joke I have is just my life. And it was just like that kind of cheesy dude. He like took a sip of his drink immediately afterwards, like that sort of shit.
That was like on the show on Friday because I hadn't seen Nick Breen in forever. I didn't know he was doing comedy. I thought he was dead too.
I hadn't seen him in a minute. That was the first time.
And he came up to me
probably the same amount of times as you. Yeah.
He came up to me and he goes, he's like, Every time I see you, it's crazy. Like, I now know that you actually write jokes, but forever I thought you literally were the guy who just went up and just said shit in his head for like 40 minutes. And I'm like, I appreciate that because I write it and try to deliver it so it seems like when I was first starting to do comedy, my crowd work was good and my jokes were awful. So people would like the crowd work, and then it was a different level, and I couldn't follow myself. And it was like, but then I tried to pull back. But then if they didn't like the crowd work, if I got too rough or too crazy when I was drinking, stuff like that too, and I yelled something inappropriate or insulted somebody, I could not win them back with a joke. I didn't have that joke good enough. So then I was just in trouble. Yeah. So I was like, I'm natural and funny when I'm kind of feel like I'm on the attack, or even when I'm attacking myself, being that loud alpha / beta, because I'm loud like an alpha, but when you hear my stories, I'm definitely a beta, kind of as I try to write as. So I write the jokes all open-ended, like my crowd work is, so they can flow into each other in and out, and I can always find my way back. And so I'm trying to write it so it seems like I've never written anything.
That makes sense, yeah.
And that's why it's nice when a drunken drug addict is like, yeah, man, it seems like you just yelling like I do in a bus. I'm like, thanks, Nick. And then Nick rubbed his jizz on his shirt and then brought up the dead guy. Anyway, which is fun. The idea I'm working on right now is, once again, I hate to say, I probably shouldn't admit this, but I'm going to admit it on this podcast here. I said the dating thing. All my new material is me choosing to try to do things I hate that comics do at open mics. Now, I'm not saying that out loud, but every premise I'm doing is things that when I watch an open mic comic bring up as their premise, like the dating app. I'm like, oh God, I hate this. So I'm going to write Pat Oates' versions of dating apps.
Oh, okay. So it's the premise. You're not doing a bit about comics.
No, I'm not even bringing them up.
Okay.
It's me. If I have to watch these things, I want one too. Like if they're gonna do it, I want to do one too. So I wanted a joke about inappropriately saying the N-word. Now, not saying it obviously, but you know how many comics will be like, "Oh, I was doing this thing, and then Bob said this." And like it's like and I just get so tired of it. So I started going through my head about like I've never said it. Believe me. It's not like my family raised me.
I didn't doubt. Yeah.
No, my family has definitely raised me too. Like there are people around me constantly. So I started thinking about that. And I was like, I had this thought the other day. I just wrote it down. I was like, and this is true. Everyone I've ever been in a relationship with has said the N-word in front of me. Everyone, married, dating, anyone more than just like one or two days. Like anyone I've called a girlfriend has said that word in front of me. So I thought that was weird because none of them I've ever thought of as racist. So I was like, how do I tie this in? So the idea I have now is me saying that at first and going, but like, they've never said it to like Black people. They only said it around me. So maybe instead of me thinking they're racist, maybe they're so woke that they think it means bald guy who will never amount to anything. Like, I want to go more with it. But do you
that
think?
Makes sense, yeah.
But because I wanted the whole point of the joke in my head is to bring up the situation where everyone's like, he's going to go this way. But then I'm literally not even making it about the word.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say the fact that they're not racist, I think is kind of funny because it's almost like you're saying that what was the first thing you said? It's like everybody I've dated has said the N-word, right?
Yeah. Everyone I've ever been in a relationship with has said the N-word in front of me. Now, I've never heard them say it out loud at people or anything like that, just in private with me.
But I think like the assumption, I don't know how people's first assumption go, but my first assumption was like either Pat's dated people who've said it like in conversation, like with aggression, like kind of the more racist side. But then there's like the more sillier side of things, like everybody I've ever dated has just listened to this song in the car and they've said it in front of me.
Because every comic goes there, and I didn't want to go there.
Oh, that makes sense.
They always do. If you know, now you know. You know what I mean? Like,
even if it's not that, though, it's like the silliness of saying it, because you're not, I don't know if this makes sense, but when you said none of them are racist, my first question was like, are any of them Black either? And then and they're like, they're neither. That's why this is confusing, because they said it, they weren't being racist, but they also shit. And I don't know.
Well, okay. I like that.
Silliness that can ensue of like, no, I like the person. They were cool. They're not racist, but they said the N-word, and here's why. Does that make sense? Like,
no, 100%. And that kind of opens things. I like that. So
the likability of the people,
right? So
there is kind of like
I kind of like maybe
I want to hear this now.
I touch on that a little more, where I'm like, it's like none of them were racist. Like, okay, they weren't in a club. I mean, obviously they're saying the words, so they're not Harriet Tubman, but they're not David Duke. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
There's a fine line. Like, they're. Do you think Eminem's racist? That's what they are.
And that's also just a more interesting story, because I feel like a lot of people just have stories of, oh, this person was racist and this is how ridiculous that is. But you're being like, this is a story about a regular person. This is how we got to the N-word part of it, like that kind of thing, you know? This is like how the N-word, we didn't think it was going to come up, but it came up. And
like,
here's how.
Is that the reparations? It's like, now I get called it. Like, I'm fine with it. Like, it's like, is that the progression? Is that where BLM? Like, is that why white women are backing it? So they can just call it me. Like, but that was the thing. Like, I don't want to. I'm never. I don't want to say it. You're right. The joke isn't about me bashing them, so I don't want it to become they were all awful people. I do a lot. I've said a line once or twice on podcasts and stuff, and I kind of was trying to add it into there, maybe like a thing like, listen, I'm not dating any of them. I don't speak to most of them now, but I'm not angry at anyone who's ever let me see them naked. I salute you. I thank you for your service, no matter what you've done. That being said, they've all said the N-word.
That's good too, because you have this like nice speech about like, no, they're great. They've also said that.
I've seen them naked, and I've seen them say a thing that could make me not want to be naked. It's like, and I think when I say it right away, I'm trying to find a way so a heckler doesn't go, in bed, do they call you the N-word in bed? Like, because I just dummy thoughts. And it's like, I always think of that, because then I know my mind is going to be, I'm going to eviscerate them, but then it takes away from the nicety of where I want to go with this. Not that I'm trying to keep it nice. I like the idea of taking a joke that everyone's kind of doing and they make it end in a different way than it does. You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
So it's just like, I don't think it needs more. I'm not going to go, here's an example of when they said it. I don't need to add. No, I'm going to have other stories about dating things that are mostly going to be fabrications, because I find it easier when I'm writing a joke to put all the attributes of things into one person, so the crowd doesn't get too
too
much shit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, so like if your aunt in real life, your aunt did one thing and your uncle did the other, but you've established on stage that your aunt's one way and your uncle did something that would be aunt-like on stage, I give it to the aunt. You know what I mean? I make sure they understand she's the crazy one. I did that with my kids. When I had all my jokes about my kids, half the stuff I said my son did, my daughter did. But the way I built them on stage, it made more sense for Seamus to do this and Ashlyn to do that. So
that way you don't have to like start over. If you're telling like a bunch of quick bits, you don't have to be like, my son did this and then my daughter did that, and like kind of
but it also contradicts something you've said. You're like, my son always does this crazy thing, and then he did the exact opposite. You're like, wait a minute, what?
Right,
exact opposite. Like when they were little, I did the whole joke where my daughter was like in Mensa, and then my son no Mensa. So there's things he's on honor roll, he does well, but like it didn't make sense in the material for the next joke to be he was on the honor roll, because then like, what is
of course, if
they don't believe what you're saying, then they're just gonna go, none of this is, yes, none of it is real. But the crowd's supposed to believe you're giving them some insight a little bit for them to connect.
Yeah.
So I need them to believe all these women say the N-word. That's it's what I need. But I don't. But do you think I'm right, or should I try to go farther than that? I think that thing, and then like a goofy ending, and then move on. I don't think it needs more.
No, I that all made sense to me, and I feel like, I mean, it's not a particularly long story just in itself. Right. So the bit based off of the story wouldn't be that long. Unless I
have a lot of long stories. I want a couple filler fun things in between. Like I'm talking about me and saying something. If I'm talking about dating app, and then I go into a thing like, listen, on my past,
so as that is the overall bit. Yeah. No, because that's like one little part of it, you know?
Right. And kind of like even saying like what I look for is like somebody who doesn't like drama, and doesn't say the N-word. I've never had either one of those.
And then after you're done with that, you could just bring up another dating and then just do
Right.
a story like in that.
I want nothing that ends in A, Obama, the N-word. And someone goes, wait, that ends in ER. I go, that's the worst one. How dare you? They never said that. They were melodic when they said it. But I'm going. My mind's going back to your bit. I just love. You can do that's like literally a structure where you could not even just do that joke. If you can take once you start to learn how to make people see their situations in your joke, that's when you unlock the difference when a comic is just getting people to laugh, and then when they're literally they can close their eyes and see what you're talking about. If you bring up a destination, place, someone, because then in their heads they're going to be someone's going to walk up to you afterwards with that joke and go, dude, there's a place in Idaho that has the world's biggest ball of yarn, and my friend wanted me to go see that. You should talk about that. You're not going to talk about that, but you realize that they're connecting. It's yeah, I wanted to see you. I didn't want to go do that. You could go as far as my grandmother was on her deathbed, and as we're there, and she literally, you could hear the machine beeping differently. She's like, did you see the Eiffel Tower? Stop being a tour guide for 2 months. It's so much you can do with that. And then once you learn that structure, it's a whole different ballgame. You can write so many things in that way where they can't even tell. It's just not you're doing the joke the same way, but you have this framing of here's this thing you're familiar with. So you can hold that while I add to it my shit that you don't know, but it has this comfort. That's why when I first try to figure out punchlines or at least way to make joke funny, I always try to use, analogies or metaphors or synonym, anything like that, where I can go, hey, this is like this. This is this, this is to this. And then they go, oh yeah, we know that other thing. So now this thing is funny now until you learn the punchline.
Yeah.
Give them that thing. So I think it's a perfect way. Me going to visit my friend and him wanting to give me a tour is like me going to boom and then boom, boom, boom. And then all of a sudden you've got maybe a different joke or a different thing. It just keeps your mind going with it the whole freaking time. And then you turn into Dave Sheehan and you have 45 jokes about the same goddamn premise.
It's a monster.
Which I loved when he started doing that. Anyone in New England knows him. Dave's amazing. I knew Dave when he first started, and he had longer stories, and they were well written, detailed jokes.
Oh, interesting.
But when he found, he had jokes about the Merritt Parkway, and he'd be a Joker's Wild, and I'd be in my head at first, being newer, going, "Who the fuck cares about this?" And I'm like, they all relate to it. All of them, most of them took it here. Most of them, every little detail he named on this stupid fucking shit highway, they hit home to the point where you see them all fuck you, in my head. It was crazy. He had that ability early on, but the material was kind of boring, but the way he did with it was great. He talked about that, and he talked about the game Clue. He had a 10-minute bit on the game fucking Clue.
I feel like he's still, I think I've heard him. I might have heard something similar, whatever his version of that is now. But
right, and I'm sure he unlocked that thing he does where he does this is to this, this is to this, and this thing he does now, which is so good. I think it just opened up all his writing. Yeah,
I got to watch him do. It was one of Franco's shows. He did I want to say it was 30 probably.
Yeah,
and that aspect of it, the thing you were talking about,
Gatorade, is it in you? Trojan should also be, is it in you? It's dude, and it just the way the wordplay and the way he does it.
15 minutes of those, I think.
Yep. And it just crushes. And it's also at the end, everyone's saying it, and it's resonating. It's he found a formula. So when you find every comic, when they find that formula, all of a sudden, even though it might sound not exactly the same, when you find yours, it's almost like when you hear a band play and it's them. You know what I mean? You hear a guitar and you go, that's Steely Dan, and you just know it's them. Or you hear something else, you go, oh, that's Pearl Jam. It's they didn't say anything, yell, here's Pearl Jam. You might know the song, even if you heard a new song from them. When anything, Audio Slave or Rage Against the Machine, you knew Tom Morello was playing guitar the second you heard his fucking guitar. You know what I mean? So it's as a comic, you kind of want to do that rhythm where you're like, that's him. You know what I mean? That how many times you heard a comic?
The audience gets that nice moment where they've heard like a few of them in a row, and then he says like the first word of the next one, and they kind of see where he's gonna go from there, and they start laughing right away. And he's like, "Oh, just you wait," and then he gets there.
He's got him right in the palm. Like they know where it's gonna go. Same thing with me. I always try to start off not as aggressive, but I present what I'm gonna be. So therefore, when we get to the middle part and I start to bring up a topic, they're kind of go, "Oh shit! If this guy was joking like this about other stuff, he's gonna go hard on this kind of thing here." So it'd be weird for me to all of a sudden stop and do, "Here's a loving tale," and they'd be like,
right, yeah.
But yeah, I that's what I love, watching other comics and seeing their rhythms. You know what I mean? That's why I was interested to watch some of the rappers at the end of the show, because I love to watch other people create and kind of see it, because they're same as us. They're writing in notebooks. They're coming up with things that will connect.
And it's got to be clever. It's more about the wording when you're a rapper. Like if you're in a band, there's less just lyrics overall. So I think they focus on like the word craft,
right? Because they're everything.
As much as
yes, there's beats and all that, but like when you're there live, you're not listening to the beats.
Yeah.
You're not, you catch it, but you're not on when I'm listening to music, I'm listening to the music more than I am the lyrics sometimes. And I have to listen a second time to hear the lyrics. And a great singer songwriter will inspire when I'm in the writing mood, either like writing for books and stuff or writing for comedy. I don't listen to other comedy. I listen to like all kinds of singer songwriters to just hear how they create and think. So my mind kind of gets in that same mode. You know, when I listen to comedy or watch stand-up, it's for my enjoyment. I don't really watch it to go, because I don't want to be influenced. I hate when I go watch a guy, I'm like, "Oh, dude, how much Bird did you just watch?" Like,
and that's why I don't watch as many specials anymore. Like the few that I watch are for enjoyment, but I can't like just sit and watch. Like I can't try a new comedian unless I'm like for sure like into them, you know.
I listen to comics that don't do what I do.
That makes sense.
I appreciate it because I can't do it. But like on my Spotify playlist of comedians, it's Mulaney, it's Mitch Hedberg, it's Jeselnik, it's Attell, it's guys who write structured jokes without any kind of like attacking or whatever. Like I listen to Kanane because I want to hear like what I would sound like if I was.
Oh, he's my number, at least probably number 2 or number 3 for me.
Because he's almost like listening to jazz. Because the joke goes all over the place, and you're like, does it have a structure? And it does, but you're like, you can't figure it out. Like, there's no punchline, just like and you just.
And each line is like it's funny in like a different way, which I like. Like it's appealing to different kinds of humor, because he'll tell like a really simple story, like the cat story when he's saying that's like just a one little event, but he just like has so many different directions he takes like while he's telling the story.
And just the way his mind works, like to come up with a joke that seems like so simple, like going to a graveyard and what he wants to have on his gravestone. It's like that's, I mean, I know people that just made that into like a meme and said whatever, but that was so brilliant. Like, do you know how many people have stared at gravestones and heard that song in the world and then never thought of that? And then that guy's mind thought of that and went with it. It's like, it's great. That's what I hate when you hear a comic say something. It's like, how did the world not fucking think of that? How did everyone not have that same idea? We all have experienced that same goddamn thing. How do we not think that shit? Like when he was doing a joke about it's one of my favorite ones when he's talking about chefs, and like he was talking about switching bodies with people, and like if you had to go into someone else's body and didn't know what it was, and you had to become a Benihana chef, and it's like this whole fucking thing where he's like, what the fuck would that be? Like, am I at a poker table on fire? Like, what is that? Like, he's explaining what he thinks it would be like. Then he stops and just for 2 minutes goes, and calm down, you chefs that you think you're rebels now because Anthony Bourdain wrote a book. You're not all goddamn rebels. You cut up chicken. Calm the fuck down. And it just goes right back into this. He goes, anyway, Benihana chefs. It's just, we just had a beef with someone and literally tore into it. But because of his character, it's like you get so used to Kanane that you can stay with it. You're not like, if a young comic or someone they didn't know tried to do that and you overloaded their brain, like I always think like a comic, an audience is like a sponge. They can only take so much you give them. It starts flowing out. So if you give them information they don't need, like here's a 5-minute bit, but the first 3 minutes are about the newspaper, because that's where I read it. I read this in the newspaper, and the newspapers comes to my house every day. And then the jokes about like the Ukraine. It's like, why the fuck did you tell me about the newspaper? When's the newspaper coming back? And it's just like, why did you give me that? Kanane has the ability to give you all that, quickly turn, ring you out, throw new shit in, and come back. You're like, what the fuck? How did that happen? That's like a whole different level. I would love to see his notebook.
Yeah. And just kind of how he,
yeah,
like what the brainstorming process is too, kind of how he comes up
or
with.
does it say the things that I think it said? Does it not say any of it? Is there really a structure where he's got like 4 things and then like inside little mini bullet points of self rant on this, then come back? Or is it just like, fuck it, I'm just doing that? You want to think there's madness, but for the way he does it so well and so consistently, there has to be method, you know?
Yeah.
So I would, but I've never heard him do a joke about people saying the N-word nice. So I think I'm okay. I appreciate you coming on. I really do.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me.
It was fun because I've run up to you enough times and said it. I've always appreciated your writing, how you come up as a comic. You're one of the ones where you first started. I know I'd run up. One of the people I'd run up to and be like, "Hey, I really like what you're doing." Some people can take that the wrong way, but I get so fucking.
No, I was always appreciative. Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
I was like, I hope he at least knows, not just some crazy guy. I just get so excited for comedy when I hear someone do something refreshing. My first thought was, oh, I hope this open mic crowd doesn't ruin him because he writes well. I hope they don't make him just turn into a guy who says cunt. Like,
no, I really appreciate it, man. Yeah,
because you really could have turned a path and then become something awful like an Alex Thomas Sally, but you didn't. No, I'm kidding. I love Sally. I'm actually gonna have him on here soon too.
I was gonna say his writing process. I know kind of how he approaches things, but he would be a good person to talk to this
without a doubt. And because him and I are similar in thought process sometimes. And he also depended on crowd work a little more than he should have at one point, and now believes in his jokes too. So I think he's another good guy to definitely talk to. At the beginning, he was just like, because you guys had to, when you guys built your little group in the West Hartford area there and doing that, you were entertaining each other. So everyone's like, oh, they're real clique. I'm like, no, they're not. They're the only 5 supporting each other. They're trying to make each other laugh. They're not being a clique on purpose.
We also, I mean, like at that point, there were mics every single night of the week that you could hit. And we would end up carpooling a lot. That's how we kind of like ended up, all being in the same place at the same time a lot of the time. But we'd all just like hit like, 2 or 3 mics in a night as much as we could.
You know how great that is as a resource. Like, you don't think about it, but like you would do your same 4 or 5 jokes, but then Cliff can turn to you and go, "Hey man, tonight when you said that bit, you did this." Yeah. It's like we all get each other's shit.
I remember, I think because you were there that night, actually, like you ended up, I think it was just an elbow mic, like before the shutdowns, but I said something, you came up to me and like you liked it. Then I was like, oh, Sally actually gave that to me like yesterday, I think, because we had just been hitting mics together like all week, and you were like, that's good because you guys aren't anything alike as far as comedians go. Right. And that's good that you guys are thinking about each other's jokes in a way, because it's like better. Like I would actually almost rather hear it from someone who I'm not alike in comedy,
Right.
Because that means they're like analyzing it just from a objective comedian standpoint, not like, oh, like how would I do this bit? Because he wouldn't do the bits the way that I do or about the same thing.
Exactly. That's the thing too. When I watch somebody, I go up to them, but I make sure my advice is in their point of view and not mine. Comics run up and go, really, I would do this. Yeah. Like, but I'm not you. I don't. That's not your joke. I wrote
really good about that too. Like he's just good at that in general, because he understands.
You guys knew each other, and you saw each other's process. You know what I mean?
Like all week, yeah.
That's when I first started. I had guys like that, or like Darren Rivera and stuff around me, where it's like he would just go, "Oh wow, you said this today." Like we would joke, like you said "and" instead of "is" this time. It's like we would know every little fucking things. We were doing all these shows together, but it did help each other because then I'd hear him do something and go, "That's not you. That doesn't even fit what you do. What are you doing?" Either mess with it or move it away because now it's going to take away from this and this. He's like, oh shit, you're right. Because we'd also be like that way with each other too. It's like, that doesn't even sound like you. Who did you listen to where you think that's you? It's like, because you get influenced by the wrong things or go, oh, maybe I should try to be clean today. Or maybe I should, no, you're on the right path. Just keep fucking being you and keep the right support people around you that know your comedy too. And don't listen to the guy who's paying you. Never listen to fuck that guy. Even if he's been, hey, today I'm gonna need you to do sports jokes. Fuck off. I don't do sports jokes. And if I make one up right now, you're not gonna want it. It's gonna be awful. But dude, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Where can people like check you out, follow you, all that stuff?
Oh, Doofy Ish on Instagram. I don't have Facebook right now, but I'll react. I mean, when is this going up? I'll put it back up.
I'm gonna put it up this week. No, you go. I'll tag you on Instagram. Don't worry.
Word. Yeah, Doofy Ish, DOOFYISH. That's where everything is. Everything's either on my story or in my posts. So yeah.
Like, and it was a pleasure seeing you get work on Friday. Hopefully I run into you doing it, Mike, stuff like that. If anyone's out there and sees that you're on one of them flyers, go see it because you're gonna see a funny fucking guy.
Thanks, man.
Really appreciate it. Of course, man. You're one of my favorites in this area. Other areas I hate you, but in this area, dude, thanks so much for doing it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude. Thank you.